So when we think about gems, we really have two primary categories of gems that we think about. One is prompter or prompt, which is sort of a brand that we envision developing later, but really it's a way for us to create generic prompts and gems for our clients so that we can apply those to anything. The other category is for specific brands. So we may create a prompt for current daily that brings in all of our background research, our content pillars, our keywords. Let's say if we're talking about a prompt that we built for current daily specifically for one of their newsletters. So they have two newsletters. So there's one that we recently developed for them called the Hot Shots, which is clearly not done because the description isn't ready. But if I go down here to the newsletter builder, this is a lot more fully formed. And within that may have aspects that include information about the client itself. So like, I can just go back here to the list of gems, scroll down here, go to edit. This will include, the personas, content pillars, unique value proposition, audience profile, kind of the backgrounder that gives us the whole thing. Get more research, and then like a newsletter edition builder, sort of the generic prompt. And then in this case, because this is an older prompt, I've got some specific direction that would normally just live in a document that lives in the knowledge. So our current thinking is that our prompts that we build today do not have like that set of instructions within the prompt. It's just all part of the product knowledge. And I'll show you what I mean right here. Back. Gems. So I'll select edit, click on it. Crazy person. So in any case, so we've got this instructions where I started like with something silly. And so I've got the content personas, I've got the pillars, I've got the audience, UVP, background, industry, and then the builder. Normally it should actually have like a specific prompt to it. So if we kind of go back to, and I just clearly cut corners here. But if we go back to sort of a generic, it's not going to get it done. When will I learn? For Insight Builder, it's going to give me just a much clearer picture of the way that we work. So we'll have a first principles for these prompts, and then the actual prompt itself, right? And the first principles, we also have a prompt for that. And really what that does is it kind of takes the idea of whatever we're working on and forces us to think about what is the foundational aspects of that. Like just going back to the original idea and just asking why are we doing this? What is it? It at its core essential concept. And we do that as a way to ground ourselves into what is the basic idea of the thing that we're doing, right? To just kind of bring ourselves back to a sense of reality about what we're doing and not bring all of our kind of assumptions that we walk around like a fucking zombie all the time, like just kind of lurching around. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do this now. Instead, we want to stop and think, well, why are we doing it? What is it at its essence that we're creating? And that allows us to work in a much more effective way because we just have a clear-eyed view of what we're trying to accomplish. The other reason to do that is it kind of strips away at a very foundational level all the kind of just nonsense that like informs large language models, right? So one way to think about large language models, and this is really kind of an early view of it, and as they get more sophisticated, they have other reasoning tools that they bring to bear. But originally, the way large language models worked was, and this is oversimplification, but it took all the knowledge in in the World Wide Web, the internet, threw it into a big fat hopper, pureed that, and then allowed you to begin querying that by, asking questions. And the result of that was a kind of, homogenized smoothie of a lot of information that kind of took just whatever it found and like shoved it in there. That's why like so much of the writing for AI is pretty awful, and why a lot of the things that it locks into when it's delivering results are just inappropriate, wrong, skewed, incorrect, for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because most of the information on the internet is bad. Maybe the prompt was bad or whatever. But the first principles kind of brings us back into reality, kind of shakes us up, and puts us back into a mindset where we can work effectively. So those are that first principles that's created with its own gem, right? And then what that does is, and you can open this directly from the prompt. So it breaks down the problem, right? It has a few precepts that are essential to the idea of, first principles, right? So it kind of looks at the thing, and then it, into the absolute minimum non-negotiable components. Again, you have to check it. But if this is largely true, when it gives you the result, you're good to go, right? And it also considers like several things, like, what the state of affairs is, what we want, what the target for whatever we're working on is, particularly if it's marketing related, the limitations. And there are always limitations, so we have to understand those when we're thinking about first principles. Anything we do is bounded by money, time, effort, energy, all those things. And then what we need to do to kind of make something happen, right? So in this case, we're looking at a web design brief. It creates some assumptions. It challenges those assumptions. Then it continues kind of down the path, right? And so it pushes back on, the ideas of like, the visual idea of the website, whatever. And then it kind of comes back and it says, now I'm going to kind of build a simplified model, right? And it's important to understand that if you don't understand something, that requires you to provide some kind of complex explanation. If you understand something cold, you can explain it simply and easily so that anyone can understand it. And we use it and explain it to the child test. So our model is, can you explain it to a 6-year-old child? If you can't do that, you don't know what you're talking about. Period. End. Right? There's no other way to like varnish that into a way of understanding. So we add these first principles in, and what that does is it kind of explains like how we're going to work. It does explain it to a child test, which is sort of useful to read. And then it creates like a defined success. So what is a win in this case? What are we trying to accomplish? And if you've got that accurately done, that will give you a really nice foundation to build your prompt. So we take that, we feed it into just a regular chat, and we say, hey, as a master prompt builder, I want you to create a prompt. Actually, we say like a exalted, accomplished master of your craft prompt builder. We want you to create a master prompt that we will use in order to generate, in this case, a brand website brief. And so that brand website brief will come with some explanation around it. It will come with a specific prompt, or in this case, it just jumps right in the prompt. It defines the role, the objective, the input variables. Usually those we already have created those. So you're just adding in the knowledge that you already know, background research, personas, content pillars, keywords, all those things get added in to that particular execution for a particular brand, right? And so that kind of helps us like move through this quickly. So we just create this framework, right? And then all the knowledge specific to a particular brand gets added in here. And so that's how we build those prompts to create information, knowledge tools, what have you, from within Gemini using gems. It's a pretty simple process. And we like it that way. That is elegant. We want to create the ability to create gems, looking at the foundational rules, creating a good master prompt that we can live with, dropping it in, and then you're always going to test that. And the cool thing is the current generation of Gemini will ask if you want to go ahead and test that out before you commit that to a gem, which is very cool. So you're usually building these gems with the idea specifically that you want to do something for a particular client. In this case, I built the brand side brief because I wanted to have a project brief specifically for redoing the Lambda website. So that's where that comes from. So it's a way to understand these. These all live in. Hold on while I get to it. Try. These live in the prompt program. So if they're generic, they live here. If they're brand specific, they live with the brand. So when we do a style guide for Lambda, that lives in the Lambda marketing folder. In this case, we go to specific folders that are designed around prompts, and we've organized those by content. Excuse me. We're developing e-commerce. That might be a different category. Foundation. These are fundamental things that we do, including research, brand positioning, brand voice builder, persona builder, that sort of thing. Operations. So for more pedestrian things we do, like job posts or statements of work. Research, that's a different category. Search is a different category because we're thinking about building an AEO, GEO playbook, doing alt tagging, doing meta tagging, creating schema. Those are important. Some of these are kind of old, like content prompts that needs to be reorganized. Strategies for cold outreach, newsletters, that sort of thing, and then web development. So we're trying to keep these organized this way. That's a little bit of a moving target. And within those folders, you'll find. Let's go to FAQs. So within FAQs, we get first principles. We don't have the prompt there because, at one point, we were putting the prompt straight into the gem. Let's see. Let's get something a little newer. So in this case, this really involves a lot more documents than like some of the other ones where we just have a first principles and then we have a prompt. In this case, we might have created a framework as a way to think through or allow Gemini to develop some ideas around it, right? And then we might create like an additional prompt. So we could create multiple prompts around that and put that in, stack those prompts into the gem. It's a very reasonable and probably something we'll be doing more and more as we get more refined and more precise with what we're doing. Let's see if we can find one that's just sort of a basic first principles. And a prompt. So this would be very typical, right? So first principles, we go do that research that I discussed. We investigate that using the gem for that. And then we create a prompt for that. And then that informs the gem that we've created. And then once we want to utilize that gem, we'll put the specific brand information in there as additional documents for knowledge to that specific prompt that we create. So that's about it. Of course, there'll be a rehash of all this in the notes below. And hopefully this is a little bit more, this helps you understand how we're working with gems today. And I'm sure in a couple of months, this video will be reburned with a new strategy around this.